This is Baiken, and while she is one of the most popular in Guilty Gear period, she is also, unfortunately in Guilty Gear Strive, one of the most punished. In this video, I'm going to go over her most important problems and what I think they can do to fix her. But before we go into her issues, we have to look at what Baiken does as a character in this game. Baiken is listed as a balance type character, a character designed to do a little bit of everything. In practice, she excels at mid-range, defensive type neutral. Her forward slash is a top class mid-range poke. It's fast, active with little recovery, making it hard to whiff punish. H-Company is a special move where she throws out a chain at the opponent. On hit and block, it drags the opponent in, and it is extremely safe on block. Unit Strike 2.0 is that it's a bit faster, and it can lead to situational combo extensions, such as when people are airborne or when the opponent backdashes. One of Baiken's signature moves is Tatami Gaishi, and the airborne variant in particular is really good for defensive neutral. Baiken drops his tatami mat in front of her, leaving a lingering active hitbox that can clash one hit of a projectile and can stop an opponent's approach in their tracks. 2S is a counterpoke that outranges far slash. It is easier to whiff punish though. Ninja Strike 2.0 is that she gets a combo on standing normal hits as they have upped the hit stun and block stun on this move. Jump S is a large air button. This move can actually hit people from quite a distance, especially retreating, and can be used to call out airborne opponents, call out predictable zoning, and protect ground space. Now, for her offense, Baiken has a couple of important, unique tools the opponent has to consider. For starters would be her special move enders. The Tatami Gaishi and H-Kabari are both very safe string enders, and they are both -3. The big thing here is she can manipulate the opponent's position to be as favorable as possible for her. The Tatami pushes opponents away from you, while the chain pulls you in. Her throw is also very important to consider. Getting thrown by Baiken is very bad news because she applies her tether immediately on you with a lot of advantage. And this gives her some of the strongest throw mix-up in the game. In particular, the threat of the throw is that it is pretty easy for her to build meter for subsequent offense if the mix-up is successful. Speaking of the tether, throwing is not the only way to apply this move. It is its own special move and one of her really unique things in this version of the game. One of the really unique things about this move is that characters can't actually get away from her when it's on them. And most importantly, it creates new combo situations that she would not have access to normally. That being said though, the opponent also gets new combos from this situation. The last important move would be Yo Zansen. Some of y'all out there call this Yo Johnson, but it can be performed immediately off the ground, making it a fast overhead. So commonly when the opponent blocks moves like her close slash or her standing kick, they'll have to guess between a low or an unseeable high. This is a powerful and direct way of hitting an opponent directly in block stun. For defense, by far the biggest factor would be her parry, Hiragi. While simple at a glance, this move has quite a bit of uses for a variety of situations. For starters, she has a close parry, which slams the opponent down, and a far parry that lets Baiken dash cancel and continue her offense with a powerful 50-50. Baiken also has the ability to do this out block stun, giving her the ability to reverse situations in ways no other character in the game can. It is difficult to execute, but it might be easier if you use the sponsor of today's video, 8BitDo. This video is brought to you by 8BitDo. 8BitDo just launched a new leverless controller, the Arcade Controller Pro. This is not the same as their previous leverless controller and has a bunch of improvements. The big theme with this controller is customization. For starters, one of the coolest things is the built-in display on the top left of the controller. So here you can edit important settings about the controller, such as how you read inputs. You can remap your buttons with their Ultimate Software V2, see how much battery you have left if you are playing wirelessly, and you can even see your inputs in real time. The P1 to P5 button caps are easy to replace, and the controller comes with spare switches and lock caps inside the magnetic wrist rest. So personally, in my time playing and competing in fighting games, I've always been a fan of when controllers have something inside them that you can just easily access to swap out parts on the go. And I find this way pretty clever because the controller is actually really thin, so putting it in the magnetic wrist rest is a great idea. You can choose to play either wirelessly or wired, and it's easy on the controller to switch between different platforms. Thank you once again to 8-Bit though, and back to the video. Welcome back, and next we're going to talk about not just Baiken's weaknesses, but why I think she needs some help specifically. And we're going to start with defense actually, because this is where I personally think she has a pretty standout problem. So as I mentioned earlier, Baiken has unique defense with her guard cancel and parry, but this character is a routine victim of system nerfs that affect us. Over time, nerfs to meterless reversals have been pinned on her as well, which makes sense, but her only meaningful compensation has been in Season 4 with the larger parry window and the addition of guard cancel, along with the new properties on both far parry and far parry on airborne opponents. Keep in mind, this is when Season 4 dropped, so this is back in October 2024 she got these changes. And in Strive 2.0, she's once again being punished for having a meterless reversal despite not having a Dragon Punch. In the current version, the risk reward for parry is insanely rough. The damage has been nerfed again from 100 to 60. Keep in mind that when she came out, the damage was 160, so that now it's less than 50% of its initial damage when she dropped back in Season 1. But they also nerfed the knockdown, both making the opponent be farther away and having much less frame advantage. Nothing really reaches from here besides moves that are way too slow to actually make the opponent be scared. At +7, she doesn't really have anything to prevent the opponent from escaping or doing anything at all really. And keep in mind that parry both loses to throws and projectiles, where DPs beat both. At this point, the reward on baiting this out is just really high compared to the risk. The typical response you'll hear from people is, well, you can't safe jump Baiken because this is active on frame 1. But anyone who actually understands the character will know that it's much better to actually just play around the risk reward of how much damage you'll do if she's wrong, rather than trying to do typical setups to the character. And to be honest, unless the character of a DP beats you neutral or the player's just better than you, you basically don't have to bait reversals on knockdown at all. I personally, when I play against DPs, I don't really care about them. Or in the case I'm playing like Nilia, she has things that just beats DPs sometimes. And parry aside, I just think Mira's reversals are just really weak right now and need to be buffed, period. There are situations where she can keep the advantage, but they are few and far between. Now, the prospect of being able to attack out of block stun is extremely powerful, but if you watch most Baiken players, it's basically inaccessible to new players due to the baseline difficulty around using it and the punishment for when you're wrong. As a summary, the attack does not come out in hit stop, so if you're not experienced with using it, it won't come out when you think it will. So most people would think that you want to do it, like let's say on those 2 hits on 2S, but if you're not experienced with the move, you're gonna have it come out here where you don't want it, where you really want it to come out here, which is a lot faster. Try it yourself if you've never actually tried the move, or if you're a person watching this who's like, you can't jail Baiken, you should definitely literally try it. Again, I want to stress that this is an extremely powerful move, and it is the best meterless reversal in the game right now in my opinion, but its full use cases are restricted to very, very, very few players. Other system nerfs affect her as well, as these affected her defense. Because the big theme of using system mechanics on defense with her was trying to do stuff inside the parry window. For example, her old jab, being 4 frames, could be used pretty safely at the end of the parry window, making it easy for someone to block for a pinch on wake up and then follow up with jab, rather than setting it on reversal parry or reversal jab. This is a thing that's still pretty good right now, since it's only a 1 frame difference though. The nerf to her jab hurts a lot more for things that used to be guaranteed punishes more than this. And the worst part is she wasn't even that good at it most of the time. The standout character here would be Abba, who could reliably confirm off her jabs into a hard knockdown, plus build character specific resource. But it was pretty good with Baiken when she instant blocked the move, got a counter hit, or had meter for a bigger conversion. Also, basically every defensive technique involving meter has been nerfed or removed. The oldest one was parry Kara super, and it was incredibly powerful. She could Kara cancel her parry into a super, making delay strikes a pretty big risk against her. The opponent, in turn, had to do nothing to stop it, leaving them open to all sorts of reversal options from Baiken. Now in Season 4, the window of the parry catcher extended to 10 frames, and I thought it was a pretty good compensation for removing something that attacking players didn't really catch on to until just before it was removed, and low-key it was kind of cringe, but very fun to use. On top of that, parry doesn't cost any meter, so I thought this was a pretty meaningful change when they did this. And a fair exchange. Super PRC, Super Red RC, and Backdash BRC were all great complements to parry. You could use all of these to play around the parry window to make the opponent vary their offense, and they have all been removed along with the nerfs to reversals connecting that I have mentioned before. Keep in mind that despite the various nerfs to Meta's reversals, Dragon Punches got throw invincibility back in Season 3.2, so again, this is pretty much 2 years ago at this point. Baiken also has conversion issues, and this is pretty important as far as neutral goes. The OG Baiken combo complaint is her / not comboing to 5H from further ranges. Now, in Season 4, they reduced the pushback of / and they gave a ground bounce to 5H, ensuring that if 5H could connect, you do get a combo. Now, to be honest, with the removal of Wild Assault in general, I don't actually feel like she needs a combo off this 100% of the time. And I also think that's part of the intent of buffing her 2S in this version. As a reminder, her 2S now combos into 2H. Previously, she could only combo into 2H off attacks like Cold Slash, crouching hits on her slash buttons, or counter hits, as her 2H is too slow to naturally combo from her / and ult 2S on a standing opponent. Now, with this type of change, it would seem like they'd want you to use 2S to with punish as well. But very often, when you hit an extended hurt box with a move like this, your 2H will not combo. Something like this is a pretty good scenario, by the way, because the worst case scenario is your 2H just whiffs totally, and this move has a ton of recovery. This can even happen from things like jump and counter hits as well. So she still has her, it's really awkward to get combos from mid-range problems even when she hits you. Now, I will say 2S is a pretty big buff, but it mostly is in a way that she should have been able to do things like this for a long time, and I don't know why she just wasn't allowed. Previously, she really struggled punishing Axel Snail when he didn't have meter. It's also a lot easier to whip punish moves like Behemoth Typhoon, where previously you'd have to do something like 2H, which does reach from further, but when you're playing from further ranges and trying to whip punish it, it could be a little bit more difficult. But 2H just makes it a lot easier. And speaking of her 2H, this leads us to another problem that I have with her. Now, there's some pretty meaningful system-wide damage nerfs in Strive 2.0. Notable ones would be like projectile starters, comboable overhead special moves, and fast PRC scaling, which Pop Buster is by far the best example of. And another big one is lunging lows. Lunge attacks, and some people will call these lariats, myself included, have always been powerful in Guilty Gear and fighting games in general, and lunging lows are generally even stronger. These attacks often are both fast and have the character go under pokes. Mid-range pokes like this can be large and quite rewarding, so being able to go under them with an unreactable low is quite powerful. Now, Baiken's 2H is a low that advances as the opponent, but unlike moves like Stun Dipper, where the low profile starts on frame 7, or Ino, where her low profile starts on frame 5, so even sooner, Baiken's low profile on her 2H starts on the first active frame of the move. This move is a slow low, so it starts on the 17th frame of the move. So in order for you to actually go under a poke like this, you have to swing really early. So essentially, its main advantage as a lunging low is that it's specifically a normal, so it could be made safe by canceling into a special move like the Tamigaishi or H Kabari. That aside though, this means this slow low that doesn't really go under stuff unless you do it really early is subject to the same damage nerfs as some of the best advancing moves in the game, making it a lowish damage starter that is generally pretty hard to combo on. Now, I will say the main advantage that it has over those other moves is that it is a heavy counter hit. So in the event that you do get a counter hit, you do get a huge reward, specifically in the meter gain that you get from converting out of it. This move also did receive a compensation buff of it being a hard knockdown, but it's only a hard knockdown on a grounded hit. So for example, if you hit an opponent's backdash with this move, this happens. If you don't dial something, you can save it by canceling into something like Tether or like a delayed H Kabari. but typically you're not able to combo up this move unless you are quite close to them when you hit their backdash. In previous versions, catching backdash was a huge use case for this move. Since the low profile was so late, if you also used it to chase backdash, you're swinging early enough to also potentially low profile a mid-range poke. So in Stripe 2.0, it feels like they nerfed it to its worst case usage in neutral, which is a low profile low. As a low, it's too slow to fight walk back from almost all ranges. The knockdown is okay, but routing into this move is pain because it usually means you couldn't do something else. It's a feels bad move all around, and just like another example of her getting punished for having a worse version of something other characters have. Another problem she has is against projectiles. This is a long-standing problem she has had, and out of everything, probably the most fair to say is her main, probably intended weakness as a character. So Baiken isn't really able to attack from all ranges, so as a quick example, we have Kyle here, and he's on the faster side with good range with pokes like Far Slash, and a variety of projectiles he could do at a variety of ranges. Now, Baiken doesn't really go into an effective attack range until she gets here-ish, which is fine by the way. If Baiken has 50 meter, she can situationally use this super, Kenju, as an anti-zoning tool. Or she can kind of slingshot herself at you, using BRC. But it's not like they didn't give her anything to fight projectiles. For example, she has this, the ground tatami. We didn't look at it too in depth besides in a block string, but this move is 2 hits, a launching stomp, and the lingering tatami mat. The stomp part of this move has a nullification property against projectiles. However, there are many exceptions to this rule. In Season 1, it was pretty decent against what the cast had to offer, but since then, there are a lot of projectiles to just straight up ignore the tatami, and the projectile nullification also leaves her vulnerable. This clip you're seeing is a quick clip from Twitter that I made, but you'll note plenty of examples of either the projectile ignoring the tatami straight up, or the projectile does interact with the tatami nullification and then plows through it anyway and hits her anyway. In fact, I made a tweet showing a clip of tatami nullifying Kyle's charge stun edge, and people were so surprised and didn't know about this that this clip got more than 200,000 views on Twitter. And don't forget, unlike DP's, guard cancel and her parry both lose to projectiles. Projectiles and things considered to be projectiles are quite flexible and good in this game. It can make characters advantageous from neutral, it can be used for defensive neutral, it can be used to set up mix-ups, and more. Being weak to projectiles is fine, but I really do think at this point she does need some help here. Her traditional bad matchups or really hard to learn matchups are characters doing projectiles outside of range of her own mid-range attacks, approaching at their own convenience, running offense at their own convenience. It hurts even more when there are attacks that deal with projectiles in an advantageous way, like Flick and Drunkard Shade, or characters that get improvements to their anti-zoning, such as Gold Lewis Skyfish, which at one point was the best anti-zoning tool in the game. It also makes fighting these characters really obnoxious because whether or not the opponent bursts or Baiken bursts, that zoner has an advantage and can set up immediately, and she can't really address it very well, if at all in some cases. H. Kabare also falls into this weakness as it has something that is technically fine, but it just stacks with her inability to deal with projectiles very well. This move has an extended hurt box here on her sleeve. It primarily comes up as a weakness against enemy pokes, where you come and see pokes that will whiff if she does nothing, that will hit her if she does H. Kabare. You feel this in a lot of matchups, but one of these standout examples is against big bodies like Potemkin or Nago. On top of the consideration that this move has travel time, so usually the opponent's poke or projectile will win unless you, again, do the move extremely early. Now, I actually do think this is fair, but since she has a bunch of other stuff that also has problems, I just think this feels worse than it actually is because you don't have something really to fix it besides, like, I don't know, running at them. Speaking of H. Kabare, by the way, I do want to talk about the hard knockdown being nerfed. If anything, this is the nerf that you, the viewer, have probably heard about the most from Baiken players. Now, I do want to reiterate that the buffs this move has received are quite strong. So one, this move got a speed buff to 16 frames. So if an opponent is running at you it is a lot harder to actually see this move happening, and I personally run into this move all the time when I'm playing the mirror. It also makes canceling into it off attacks like bar slash or sweep much safer on block. In fact, the additional speed gives a new confirm off sweep as well. In spots where you do get new extensions, the meter she builds is great and lets her route to Yozan-sen quickly. The nerf to the knockdown though, rather than saying there isn't more there, like don't get me wrong, she definitely has stuff. It's just more that she's always been kind of flawed, like she's always had these big problems, so the knockdown really helped make up for those issues. She could win from a guard cancel, which is difficult, a parry catch, which depends on the matchup and meter, risky but rewarding if you're right, a throw, which is independent guard cancel, and this is matchup defining pretty much, and a hard knockdown, primarily from H comedy. So of these 4 ways, remaining is 1.5 for the majority of Baiken players, which is getting a throw. If you can guard cancel consistently, and by consistently I mean with a good success rate, she will still feel pretty alright, but since the character has like a low with punishing skill without meter, it just makes her hits feel a lot less impactful. And before anyone says, well, oh my god, she still has access to safe jump, so why are you complaining? The power of the knockdown was access to the mix-up. I would have personally dropped this character way back in Season 2 when I picked her up if I didn't find a way to do a mix-up off H Kabaddi. The tatami thing was not enough, and you'll notice in my own play that I didn't commonly select tatami as an option off these hard knockdowns. I very often built ways of mixing up the opponent from various situations in order to really maximize the impact of that knockdown, especially because she's not combing up all her stuff, because she's not good at combos from mid-range, and she's not good at whip punishing. Many of her disadvantageous matchups felt better simply from her ability to be able to run away with it with a knockdown. And on top of these things, there are also things I feel like are just forgotten by the devs that probably could help her if they had an actual use case. Or I could say that these forgotten things just need some love after multiple rounds of nerfs on other tools that she's had. An example of the former is this. Maybe you knew this was in the game, maybe you didn't. If you play Zato, you might be very familiar with this existing and think it's pretty annoying, but if you don't play Zato, you probably didn't know it was in the game. They actually added this way back in Season 2, and one other character got a similar change. Funny enough, another character that could use some love in this game. In Testament's case, it's to get around a common restriction in fighting games, which is around what happens when a projectile is actually on the screen. I actually remember reading this change on Testament and thinking, yo, is this not like really broken? And then the version coming out and be like, it's fine, which again, funny enough, is a kind of common theme with reading Testament changes versus trying them in game. Anyways, one of the main reasons I think they added this to Testament is because of cases like this. So Testament has the ability to just charge Fireball straight up, or release him on the fly, or partly charge them. So it would be quite a slowdown in Testament's play if they couldn't throw a Fireball after this. Now, in Testament's case, if there is a projectile on screen and they do another projectile, it just cancels the original one. And for completion's sake, here's Kai. And note how, like, when there's a Fireball on screen, Kai can't actually really do another Fireball while a Fireball is on screen. Now, in Baiken's case, what exactly is the point of being able to do this? Like, what does this do? Why did they think this was a restriction that needed to be lifted in her case? Outside of the Zato use case, this has had one specific actual use, which was a relatively niche combo application back in Baiken's clean hit gun days in Season 3. Now, I did think this was to help hit confirm air tatami, because typically you didn't really have a good way of hit confirming this move if it hit unless you were extremely close or using it on knockdown advancing like this. But it is really hard to actually use it in this regard because the stomp, the part that launches, is far away from the opponent, and typically you're getting the falling hit of the tatami, so you're not really going to have a combo. Not to mention cases where opponents attack from here and she is forced to block and it has no hits done to speak of. From a tactical standpoint, there are things you could do about this kinda, but it's not about getting a combo out of it, it's just having some type of advantage or just doing something with the situation. There are rare scenarios you can combo with this, but they're few and far between. And typically with moves that are not disjoint, like Leo's 4/4 5H. Something like this would really make sense in the context of Season 1, where there was a lot less disjointed buttons, but many characters got improvement to various pokes back then, and it only works in extremely niche cases. Even in context of the current patch, you could do things like 2S to help confirm whiffs when you see a tatami fall on them. Since this got added, it has never been addressed. It feels like Arxis straight up forgot this even existed in the game. Arxis typically likes buffing moves they either really people want to use, like her tether, which they buff pretty much every patch, or moves that see no use at all, like 2P. So I would definitely want to use this opportunity to remind them that this is in the game and it does nothing. Even something like making the stomp have a different hitbox, something wider, just something with this to make it do something that matters. The most common strategy people use against ID back to Tommy is just to straight up swing into it. And at worst, she might get a combo, but she really has to finesse this situation. The use cases behind this require the Baiken to be really prepared because it's very easy for the opponent to fight, and it's kind of hard for her to make use for it, even though there's things that you can do with it. Not to mention that Tatami in general is being used less because H combo is no longer hard knockdown. So you rarely get to use this in a really advantageous way. So, as a summary, the character is weak against projectiles and can't fight zoning well. The character still has conversion issues, especially where she's supposed to be good, which is defensive mid-range. Her defense is fucked outside of guard cancel, which barely anyone is good at using. With punishing is a struggle, this ties in with conversion issues. And she consistently takes strays from other characters, along with having tools that the devs just forgot about. There's actually more I could talk about besides double tatami, but I'm trying to keep this video at a reasonable length. It is such a shame too, because Baiken is legitimately a very interesting character. You really have to learn and understand what other characters do to be effective with her in a different way than I've had to do in any other fighting game that I played before, leading to many types of situations I've never gotten to experience before. It just feels like Arxis keeps forgetting she's in the game unless they do system-wide changes. Don't get it twisted too, the 4.0 changes helped in a major way. She really needed that love, but it feels like they went back to their usual pattern with this character in Strive 2.0. The biggest thing I think they need to do is they just have to pick a lane for the character to function in. A lot of us talk about her like she's the defense character because she does have a ton of defensive options, even if they have nerfed them or removed them over the years. It's perfectly fine for her to have flaws like not being able to convert well or being unable to fight projectiles well. These are not unusual weaknesses for characters, especially with the reduction in power level in Strive 2.0. But if they want to leave these things, they have to leave something that she's good at. So, for example, that's the thing that I think really hurts about the H comedy nerfs. Like, she already has these other big weaknesses, but then they decide to take away one of the things that, like, save her and help her turn around these matchups. From their mission statement for Strive 2.0, it makes sense, but again, it's an example of they punish her for stuff other characters have. She did get buffs this patch, but there were either things she needed for a really long time, like the 2S change on standing hit, or being able to actually use 2P for something, or there were things that are necessary because of system changes, like the buff to tether from +3 to +4. The meme among Baiken players is they're gonna buff something about tether, and they did it again. And if they really want her to be about tether, then I don't know, make it easier for her to go into. I don't know. I don't know, man. At this moment, at least, one of the biggest like bad vibes about Baiken is that like it feels like they really actually legitimately think tether is broken, because it is true that a bunch of the things that I've mentioned, like conversion problems, are fixed by this rope being attached. She doesn't need everything fixed, just a couple of changes and she'll be fine. I think she could be a solid mid-tier or even I-tier character. My thing is, the devs have given the world to some characters over the years. Characters like Anji, Pot, Johnny, Kai, even my old main Milia. These characters have had a lot of problems in the past that have gotten fixed, and the characters are more fun and stronger because of it. They've changed characters that have released half-baked, like a bunch of Season 2 characters. Characters like Sin or Bedman. They've even reverted changes that characters and players in general really complained about. Things like Potemkin Karas and Jacko's 2D have been reverted. I just asked that Baiken get like a crumb, just a crumb of these changes that other characters have had in the game. Let me know what you guys think though. I'm thinking of just like making an unscripted, like these are legitimately every single problem I have with her video for Patreon. I do free content on Patreon, so you could check that out over there if you want, on top of paid stuff too if you want. So this video was just trying to cover like the major thieves and really specific things that I really would like them to change. There's like small stuff that they don't like really have to touch, or would not be such a big deal if they touch on some of the things I talked about in this video. As usual, if you have any questions or comments, definitely feel free to leave in the comment section below. Like I mentioned before, I do content on Patreon, patreon.com/LordKnight. I do free content there every week. I also do coaching over there too, so if you're interested in coaching, go check that out, patreon.com/LordKnight. I stream on most days during the week, twitch.tv/LordKnight, and we chill, hang out, practice, and also do content for my second channel, LordKnight Chronicles. Like and subscribe if you guys feel like it, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.